Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 2020 film Children of the Corn. Yes, obviously a remake of the Stephen King-based film from the 80s. And this is Shudder Exclusive. It's coming to Shudder on Friday, June 30th. I'm just going to throw it out there immediately. Me personally, I think this movie's a turd. When you have remakes, a lot of the time when you go into it, you assume that it's not going to be better or even as good as the original film. For me, I was a little more hopeful with this film because the original Children of the Corn is not that great of a film anyway, so I saw room there for some legitimate improvement without having to be an amazing film. This is not it. This isn't even close to it. Like I said, I think this is a straight-up turd. But I will tell you what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it. There were a few things I liked about it, but for the most part, I really did not like this film at all. But there may be people out there who do end up liking this film. That is totally fine because there are so many moments when I hate a movie, but other people really love it. And I always hope that films find their audience because there's an audience for every single film. So always feel free to leave comments giving me differing opinions. If you have seen this film and you actually liked it or loved it or any of that, or even if you didn't like it and you just want to say, hey, you know, I also didn't like it, do it in the comments. Now seems like a good time to also just say, please subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate that. Also hit the notification bell button because then you know when I'm putting up new videos, all that jazz. But let's get into it. Children of the Corn remake. Written and directed by Kurt Wimmer, who also did One Man's Justice, Equilibrium, which I was a fan of Equilibrium when it came out, Ultraviolet, Sphere, based on a Michael Crichton book. I hated that. And the Thomas Crown Affair, which I really did enjoy the Thomas Crown Affair. So, obviously based on the Stephen King book. Yep, Shudder Exclusive coming Friday, June 30th. Synopsis. Do I really need to give a synopsis? It's about a rural community that has, I think they're called Rylestone, that has cornfields. That's their main farming product. And things aren't going well for the town. So they're in a really bad spot. The adults are talking about what to do, and then children start to act off, and things get really bad. Obviously, you know what this film is pretty much going to be if you've seen the original Children of the Corn. If not, that synopsis I gave you is enough, and you can just go into it and, you know, see it. But I don't recommend this film, but at the same time, if you want to watch it, watch it. I do always say that every film is worth watching at least once, just to know how you feel about it. So there you go. The opening sequence is actually pretty solid. It did really hook me in at the beginning, but the music that they use in the opening sequence is so cheesy that it makes you feel like this film is going to be like a comedy parody of the movie. And it's so mismatched for what's going on in the sequence. The sequence is actually legitimately messed up and disturbing and pretty good, but the music on top of it just turns it into something totally different. Like I said, makes it seem like this is going to be like a comedy parody. And that leads to a big thing of mine is the score in this film overall just over the top. It's way too much. They go way too hard with it. It screams at you a lot of the time, and I'm not a fan at all of the score screaming at you and trying to tell you too hard what you should be feeling. Like, gives people a little breathing room here. In general, the score is... I really said that. I already said that, but I want a more restrained score. It feels like you're missing some stuff in the beginning of the movie that you should have ended up seeing. Yeah, it does kind of... I mean, that opening sequence, like, that's fine because a lot of movies, especially nowadays, will do this thing where they show you another portion of the timeline in the film events, and then they kind of take you back and they establish everything like that. But within this film, when it starts out after that initial sequence, you really feel like, am I missing something? Is there some stuff we should have already seen here? Should they have already established some of these characters? And it really just points to the script writing is poor. It seems like it's a script that was just rushed out in like a week or two and not really taken much time for anyone to proofread it or edit it or any of that stuff. Makes me feel really bad for the actors in this because I feel like for the most part, the actors really did what they could. And that's the thing that I like about this film is the performances for the most part are quite good. But I just feel bad for the actors because the script was so bad. This film, I think, was just doomed from the get-go, unfortunately. Characters don't react in a realistic manner to things that are important in the film. Speaks to the poor writing that I was just talking about. It's not always like that, but there are so many of those moments where it's coming up like that, and that leads to kind of plot holes. Like, it's not a very believable film for that reason. Yeah. The landscape, I will say, is shot very well. I like the landscape. It's shot extremely well. The issue with it, though, is that they choose that bleached color palette that a lot of horror films have been using that's so overdone at this point. Where it actually would have been really nice to see a more vibrant color palette picked for this one, and then you could have had things stand in contrast of, like, the horrible things going on with, like, the beautiful look of it. But the corn is not doing well in this. Like, their crop is basically on the outs, so I guess they wanted to do a bleach palette for that. So I guess that kind of makes sense, but I don't think you need to go there. Like, you can make things look better. And I just think it would have been a nice change. You know, maybe it's just a personal pet peeve thing for me. The script, terrible. The script is awful. The story that was cooked up is just too simplistic, in my opinion. They don't actually address enough things. They don't go deep enough into the story that they're trying to tell here. And the other thing is the characters are very poorly written. The characters don't develop, really. They're all kind of one-dimensional, and they don't interact well. The dialogue is very poor. Again, one of those moments where I was like, man, I feel so bad for the actors in this, because this dialogue is so bad. But you can tell, you can just feel that these actors are doing everything they can to sell this. So again, actors, you did a good job. It's just the script, it's not there. And the direction's not good either, because you need to be able to make those changes on the fly. And you also need to get the tone right of the film. And I don't think they got the tone right of this either. The dialogue says a lot that would have been better being shown. Another issue with the filmmaking here. The script, they say all the time, especially in writing, show, don't tell. And this is a lot of telling. Through dialogue, the characters tell you things that you would have been better off just seeing happen within the film, and it would have made it even more engaging, really. Character relationships feel extremely off, and not in an intentional way either. I mean, I've seen it in films where it feels off, but it kind of like matches what's going on with the film. It's important to the story. Not the case with this. You can tell it was very unintentional because of poor writing. They do a poor job creating the world you're supposed to believe exists in this movie, and an even worse job making you believe that what happens in this can happen. So first of all, with a film, you have to create a world and say, okay, this is the world you're viewing. It is or it is not like the real world that you live in. And then you kind of set up the rules for those things. And then based off of that, everything that happens should make sense. This film doesn't do a great job of creating what world it is, and then it goes forward assuming that it has rules set, and even in that state, things don't make sense. You're like, this would not be happening, this would not be happening, this would not be happening. A lot of writing out of convenience just to move things forward. Again, terrible script. Characters are very poorly written. I think for the most part the actors did what they could. Already talked about that one. There are more plot holes in this film than there are stalks of corn. Which there's a lot of stalks of corn in this film because it's Children of the Corn. And I really do think that cinematography-wise, there's some really awesome stuff that they did with how they shot the corn. That goes back to when I was talking about the landscape being pretty well shot. So I like some of the visual elements to it, but it just, there's so much other stuff lacking. It just kills the whole thing. A bit after the hour mark, this movie reaches a new level of stupidity. I could not believe what happened. And there's going to be a comparison that people will make, not just me in my head when I saw it, to other types of films. And you'll know exactly what I'm talking about when it happens. It's around the hour mark. It's a little bit after the hour mark, probably closer to an hour and 10 minutes. Something big happens and you're just like, did you seriously just do this? Did you seriously just do this? And it just makes me think all the way back to that opening sequence with the mismatching music and how it seems like it's parody. It seems like it's trying to make fun of itself. This movie's so confused. It's so confused. You also get some not so good CGI. That's the other problem. If you're going to use CGI, you got to go whole hog on it. You got to get that stuff looking nice. And there is some good CGI, but there's some that just, it looks so off. And you're just like, man, no thanks. Probably, though, the biggest positive of this film is it actually has pretty good pacing. That's one of the things I do harp on a lot with films is bad pacing. This film is like an hour and, I think like an hour and 32 minutes. It's somewhere in there, an hour and 28. It's somewhere in that range. And it moves. Like, it really does move. So that's good. You know, what it's moving with isn't stuff that's done all that well. But I will say that there's constantly things happening. So the pacing actually is good. So it gets a little bit of points. A few points for that. Well, barely any, but yeah. It's definitely different than the original, but just being different doesn't make a remake successful. This is a much worse version of the original film. Much worse. And like I said, it's not a great film in the first place. You don't find anyone talking about the original Children of the Corn, really. At horror conventions or anywhere else, like, people are, for the most part, it's just like, oh yeah, Children of the Corn, that exists. This deals in growing difficulty of farming. So I think that is one of the things that they kind of wanted to focus on this film from a societal standpoint, is the issues of farming that is faced right now in the United States. So it could have worked. It could have, really had some impact there, but it's not executed great. And I do think that this tries to make a statement about children inheriting a doomed environment because of the decisions of their parents, but it doesn't work because it's so poorly executed. I could see where they're trying to go. It could have been good. It's just the execution is a complete mess, and it all stems back to the script. If you don't have a solid or good script, everything goes downhill from there. And that was the downfall of this film. Out of 5 stars with half stars in play, I'm giving this a 1-star rating. I don't recommend it, but like I said, I hope it finds its audience. There will definitely be people out there who like it, so go ahead and let me know. And again, like I said, please subscribe to my channel. Please hit the notification bell button. All those good things. Thank you for sticking with me on this. And hey, if you watch this movie and didn't like it, I'm sorry. I tried to warn people with this. I'm always very straight up with my reviews. I always feel bad saying mean things, but this film's just a turd. Like, I'm not going to lie about how strongly I dislike this film. So, sorry about that. But hopefully people appreciate the honesty. I know that's what most people come to my channel for, is the very much honest opinions of me. But it's not the only opinion. That's why I always ask people to give me differing opinions, so feel free. Anyway, thank you for watching this video, and until next time, keep it brutal.